Welcome to Reinventing Broadcast, where AI meets content. Hosted by Ben Anker. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. This is the Broadcast Media Inside Track. This week, we've got a Berkeley connection on the line. This is Michael and Bruce from Berkeley, my cohorts from the April course. Do you want to introduce yourself, guys? Michael?
Sure. Ben, thank you so much for actually inviting the both of us. I think this is the first time that we have the three going simultaneously, if that's correct.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so we took the Berkeley course back in April, which was really amazing. It was business applications and strategies, right, through AI, which obviously it's getting a lot of attention right now. So Bruce and I have stayed connected, obviously, and the three of us have as well. And it's just fascinating to see how everything is evolving at the trajectory in which it is and who's been correct and who hasn't been correct. But prior to the AI course, I was very interested in human behavior. So I took a certification in behavioral economics from Chicago Booth. And that was amazing. I've been in sales my entire life since I'm 12 years old. I was selling hot dogs at my mother's hot dog wagon that my dad bought her after retiring from the police department. Then I started selling jewelry, then clothing, then electronics, then buildings. So, yeah, it all comes together because I believe ultimately you're going to have like epistemology and design thinking, and on the opposite side, automation. But you're always going to need that bridge, which is human in the loop and behavior. So that's what brought, I guess, the three of us together through Bruce, technically, and Berkeley.
Yeah, the lecturer, Bruce, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, you two are two of my favorite students in the course. It was a privilege to be your lecturer and take you on that journey. Loved your final projects, both of you. Yeah, my background is from a technical side. I was an automation and optimization engineer for Shell Oil for like 13 years, made it to engineering team leader, engineering manager type of role, and realized that the evolution of that automation technology was going to be machine learning. It wasn't quite called AI yet at that time, and so left Shell, went back to school, got a master's in data science from UC Berkeley, in addition to the MBA, and was lucky enough there were some positions open to teach a business-focused, application-focused course on I call it applied AI, and was very lucky to meet you both there. And in around that same amount of time, done a couple projects, did an applied AI project for DoorDash in finance and accounting, which was very interesting. And then now Mike and I are starting a company in the media space. We're trying to accelerate and reduce the bottlenecks and the rework and the bugs in producing video games in general and the other sorts of adjacent technologies.
Yeah, because I think I messaged you to find out what DevStream Labs was actually for. I was mixing it up between sort of broadcasting and streaming. And so I was actually having parallel conversations with Michael at the same time, asking him, what you're up to. And Michael said, I'm getting on board with Bruce. How did that go, Michael?
So yeah, that's pretty interesting. I know, I think, Ben, you and I actually had a couple private conversations with a couple of our other cohort members. And I had something called Hire AI that was going to use voice analytics to actually pair performance of salespeople. And through oral inflection and other characteristics and multimodal AI algorithms, I wanted to try to prove through data from Fortune 100 companies that I can tell you who your A, B, C, D players are going to be through maybe 3 or 4 simulations. So I don't know if you remember, but that was at my capstone. And I submitted it to Bruce, and he gave me some really amazing feedback. And what I understood is that I wasn't there yet. I didn't have the financing. I didn't have the prototype. Um, and Bruce actually suggested that I talked to Skydeck, and I talked to Skydeck, and there was a gentleman, Almog. He's so nice, and he's like, "Look, you don't have your prototype yet." And I said, "Okay." So I started plugging Bruce, and I didn't know they already applied, but I started plugging them, and next thing you know, they wound up winning the top 50 uh,
Wow.
of the competition out of, I think Bruce can answer this better, but maybe like 4,200 folks or something that did this. But prior to that, Bruce said, "Look, I don't think you're there yet. I think you still have a really good idea, but here's where we're at." And I said to him, are you taking any funds or any kind of, angel investment or anything? And he said, actually, we just reopened a round. And I said, wow, cool. Um, so I thought that I was going to put in a little bit of, funds there. And turns out my family wanted to do it. My girlfriend wanted to do it, and it wound up tripling. So
Wow.
we put those funds in. And then about a month later, I want to say, I was talking to Bruce and I said, look, I want to be a part of this team. I love what I call the trifecta of founders. Bruce, Rayus, and Brent are amazing. Some of the most unbelievable people I've ever met, to be quite honest with you. And they sent me an official offer letter, I think last month or 3 weeks ago, even. So it was a really interesting chain of events, all stimulated from the Berkeley cohort.
So Bruce, yeah, like, is it your baby? Like, what was the genesis of it?
Yeah, so it was actually I had the good fortune of working at Electronic Arts on both the Battlefield franchise and the FIFA FC franchise. And our main founder, CEO Brent, was the founder of the studio that I actually worked at for Battlefield. And his background is that he was at Bungie, he was at DreamWorks, at Avid for the audio production company, and then decided to start this company with the founder of Bungie, who was Alex Seropian, and they sold that to EA. And this problem is just a problem that he's just seen so many times over his career, and that I got to witness firsthand, which is the ability to rapidly iterate on your product is often stifled by, like Mike likes to say, different sort of behavioral paradigms, but also technological limitations. And so, what I'm trying to say here, Ben, is the ability to make a change to a very complex system, test that change, and then deploy that change out. It might be to some web streamers, like you were saying before, web streamers who are content creators who love to get the inside scoop on what's going to come next. Like to be able to get them something to play and use, that's been kind of very difficult in the past because the paradigm has been all of these amazing disciplines. Think of it as a factory. And I was really quite amazed too because how is video game development anything like manufacturing that like what I was doing at Shell? In fact, there's a lot of similarities. So in manufacturing, you want to have smaller batch sizes to understand, hey, is there a defect in this batch? And if there is, you can isolate that and then fix it. And in complex collaborative software development, you also want to make your changes small and contained so that if something goes wrong, you don't break the entire project, but you can contain it to one small item. And so that's what we're doing at DevStream Labs here. We are accelerating development of these complex collaborative projects. Think of it as, there's a lot of different departments. There's like an art department. They're building these amazing, beautiful assets for a video game or maybe a 3D movie, something really complex. There are special effects groups. There are movement and animation groups. But at the end of the day, all of their code has to come together and work. So right now
Yeah.
there is a concept called source control where everybody puts all of their code in one place so they have one source of truth. But there's nothing in that stack there that says that one source of truth is actually going to compile and build into a final working product. Right? So
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to change, which is instead of having everyone do this big, hey, check everything in, put everything in a source, and we're going to build a huge project tonight and we're going to test it tomorrow, which is what we've been doing traditionally in video game development. We'd say, hey, every single change, let's say like, Ben, you are our voice, all of our voice characters, because you have an amazing voice there. You have that, you want to change that and input that into the game. Instead of having to wait for all of the other assets to come in, you can just build a version of the game that has your changes. So you can test your own changes and make your fixes. Whereas before, you'd have to wait for everybody else. If it crashed, you'd have to spend another day or a week to figure out what crashed and go backwards and lose a lot of time there. And that's
Yeah.
one
So,
application of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, is it aimed at like sort of the DevOps crowd then? Is that
Mhm.
your sort of main people you're aiming this thing at, yeah?
You nailed it. You nailed it 100%. Automating and applying AI to development operations to fix those bugs and those build breakages, because it's kind of the plumbing and the maintenance of complex developments. And the people, they want to build cool stuff. They want to actually make the product and build the game. Nobody wants to do all the plumbing and fix all the issues, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Michael, we were having some pre-chat about, the sort of broadcasting side of this. And I know there's like gamers out there who've got millions of followers. Like, what you're seeing in that area and the platforms?
It's very interesting because what Bruce just said about DevOps and as well as you, Ben, is that there's a whole experiential side to this as well. And I feel like in the past, if I understand this correctly, a lot of things have been somewhat siloed, where we're in our own little potential cubicle and we're working away at different areas of operations. But we really want to be more holistic and communicative with one another. And at the moment, I think not only are we going to solve the DevOps thing, but we're also going to have the whole dev experience, the whole experiential portion, right? So to answer your question, how that trickles into community and broadcasting, um, I've been connecting with a few folks in the AR, VR, AX space, and they're very community driven and they all have their own channels and they feel that this is the future of maybe replacing cell phones. And a lot of the people that I've been dealing with over the last week, it's amazing how quickly this has been like a rocket ship through a hockey stick trajectory almost.
Yeah,
But what I've been realizing is the importance of the community aspect, and the more AI starts to get accentuated, I think that there's an equal parallel to the more community is important. And I hope that answers your question, but I think that the gaming space has its own community. I think that VR, XR, AR has its own community, and these different communities and these cohorts, similar to ours at Berkeley, they really mean something to a lot of folks, and they're very intimate and they're very um, kind of resolvent, and they help each other get through these hardships and sticky points, so to speak.
yeah. So like community is evolving, right? I guess people still like the personal thing, the personal relationships with people, and that's a prime example of it, right? And so, what's next for you guys? Have you got some plans or events coming up? What's the future looking like?
We do. But before that, Ben, can I, because this conversation spurred a thought, because I was just at the GameSpeak conference in November, which was fabulous. And from the broadcasting perspective, there was one nugget that really struck me that I did not expect, which is you would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm very ignorant with respect to traditional broadcasting, but traditional, if you wanted to bring a new product to market, you would want the broadcasting partner that is the most prevalent, the most popular, that already has the most views. But in this world of Roblox, I don't know if you're familiar with Roblox, it is really exploding in terms of people playing games on these platforms, millions and billions of concurrent users. What what they found there is that when they were trying to partner with content creators to push their product, they actually had more success going with a smaller content creator who was more passionate about their particular product than
Ah,
throwing
yes.
tons of cash at a well-established, well-known like a Mr. Beast or something like that. He might give them a minute or two of his time if they could spend enough money. But some of these smaller creators who maybe don't have as many followers, but they were really gung ho about the product, that was a much better return on investment.
Yeah, fantastic. And anything coming up for you, Michael, in the calendar?
Yeah, so we have a couple of really exciting things happening. Actually, the big one is the GDC conference, which is March 9th through the 13th in San Francisco. So I'm going to actually be flying out. I'm in New York. Bruce and Ryus are in San Francisco. Brent is in Austin, Texas. We have Molly, who's in Seattle. So we're having this convergence at the game conference in March, which is really amazing. But prior to that, I have a couple events in New York City. New York City is actually booming right now with VC events and also community events for AR, gaming, VR, XR, all that kind of stuff. And believe it or not, too, there's multiple use cases in the future for ed tech and also med tech. So I had a couple contacts in Australia. Actually, we talked to one of your fellows, Richard. So Rice and I had a good contact in robotics, believe it or not. So there's all of this amazing things that I didn't even know existed, to be quite honest with you. And as I peel back a layer of the onion, I'm just like, it keeps going, right?
Yeah,
And as long as it's dealing with Unity, Unreal, and this is just kind of the base of the iceberg. We're just building up from there with all different platforms that we could do, source code platforms and such. So it's amazing. It's so
yeah.
cool. And thank you, by the way, Ben, for stimulating the initial momentum here, because
Yeah. Because you just mentioned use cases. I'm always interested in, what's the latest use case that's caught your eye in like artificial intelligence. Bruce, I'm sure you've got some good use cases there.
Yeah, specifically for broadcasting and media, I saw this really, and so I've seen a few of these trends lately. I actually saw one on CNBC where they were able to take a still photo of the media studio and then immediately turn that into a 3D recreation where you could actually walk around and actually look at different details in it. And I'm seeing that trend. There are several different groups, DeepSeek included, the Chinese branch, who are making these what they're kind of calling world models, where it's not just video and audio anymore, but trying to recreate and incorporate more dimensions into a virtual or simulated environment.
Fantastic. And what about you, Michael? Are you seeing anything beyond that, beyond that industry, or anything that's caught your eye?
I mean, I like to read a lot of articles and I pay attention to a lot of podcasts, but I think going forward, there's going to be a huge use case for aviation going forward. So as autonomous vehicles start to get more prominent and prevalent in society, I think the next thing thereafter is going to be more aviation. But I think as long as they're building out with the code source that we're using, I think we'll be able to really help. I don't want to say perfect because nothing's ever perfect, but just expedite the process, also make things a lot more streamlined and allow people to get very, very, very creative and collaborative instead of siloed. But I think that's going to be the future.
Right, excellent. And I'm just taking a sort of macro view of the Berkeley course that we did. So for myself, I guess the first half of this year was more about doing the courses, doing the learning, doing the experimentation. But the last half of this year, after the Berkeley course, I've been more like hands-on, doing the business ventures, rolling out the ideas, actually doing the stuff. Have you found that, Michael, or what was your take on this year for you?
Yes, I agree, Ben. I think that originally the first, I want to say, I think it was 66% was much more mathematical, theoretical. We built up from the early stages of AI, I believe, in 1948, and then going up from military use cases to what they called now large language models. And then you had like AlexNet, I think 2012, 2014, all of that kind of stuff evolving. And then I think, is it Fifi? She came out with like VisionNet, and then all of these really cool things started evolving. Um, but what I've seen is actually being able to play with them. Bruce and I have been working on a project where he was teaching me on the side with Lovable and a couple of things with vibe coding and stuff like this. But I think what I will say, though, from what I've experienced, even though there is an element for individuals who haven't gone to their masters in computer science to vibe code stuff, I think if you're really trying to build something long term and substantial, I think you're still going to need a human in the loop, such as Bruce or a Brent or a Rice, to actually build this thing out to a better depth. And what I like to say is you can have a very shallow but wide river, and usually life doesn't grow in there. But if you have a very deep and more of a narrow river, that's a really powerful situation. So
Yeah,
back to what Bruce said earlier, I think you're going to see a lot more entrepreneurs evolve out of the woodwork. Nevertheless, I think you're going to see, and this applies also to broadcasting, you're going to see a lot more individual broadcasters. And the big guys and women are going to seek out the talent and kind of scoop them up. That's what I think.
yeah, yeah, because my project had the human in the loop as well. And actually, I've been using phrases more like augmentation recently, not to sort of spook anyone as well, right? And to keep people relevant. What's your take on human in the loop, Bruce?
Yeah, I love this discussion because I think we talked briefly in the course together, the three of us, about Jevons paradox, which was back during the Industrial Revolution, where the uh, coal got really well. So how did this work exactly? So the fuel, which was coal, started getting cheaper, and people were saying, hey, if coal is getting cheaper, then we will not need. How did this work? It was so the fuel, if the price of the fuel reduces, people were assuming that the use would be reduced as well. But actually, what happens is that it started becoming a lot more prevalent because the cost of the steam engine started going down as well. And so a lot more people started using it. So then the demand for coal actually started picking up a lot, which was kind of reverse to the initial assumption. I'm not sure if I told that story exactly right, but that's what it is in my mind. And so what I'm hearing from you both is that we went through this period of time where we said, oh my gosh, these technologies are going to completely displace and replace human intellect and creativity. And now maybe we're coming back to around where, so wait a minute, these technologies are actually increasing the demand for experts like yourselves and to augment those experts to make them more productive. And so there might even be a higher demand for people who are experts in fields like broadcasting or software engineering in the future.
Yeah, I think for me, that I've seen my own productivity gains go through the roof, and that's what I want to convey with like potential clients as well. It's like you can do more and free your people's time up to do more important work, more storytelling, more macro level things. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been great getting us all back together again. Can we find some information somewhere on the website or LinkedIn for DevStream Labs?
Yeah, absolutely. We're at www.devstreamlabs.com. We have some free augment tools that you can actually use to detect your build errors in Unity. And LinkedIn, yeah, we're very, very active on LinkedIn. We're doing the 12 days of Christmas right now, which Mike is spearheading, and it's fantastic. Brings a smile to my face every day. So thanks for the opportunity, Ben.
Yeah, I'll put those links in the description. So it's been great having you on the show, guys. Thanks very much.
Ben, thank you so much for inviting us. I appreciate it. And let's keep in contact, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a beautiful one. And happy holidays.
Thanks for listening to Reinventing Broadcast. Subscribe for more on AI content and the future of media. And visit ancast.tv for more info on Ben himself, the resources, other content, and news.